jumps under her belt. She was in the Guinness Book of World Records. Well, she wasn't. She was a part of a group that was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest skydiving event, like ever. She jumped out of like a raft, like a water raft, but she was in the air, you know, and like she was sitting in it, falling, and like people were holding on to it around her, you know. So she's had some pretty fun adventures. And growing up, I would always go to the airport, and there was nothing. They had no internet, no cable. The first time you watch somebody jump out of a plane, it's really cool. The 100th time you watch somebody drop out of a plane, it's really boring, and it's not so much fun anymore. And people are like, oh, you go watch your mom skydive every weekend, it has to be so fun. It's like, it's not. It's really not, you know. Had to entertain ourselves, and there was only so much we could do because you can't go on the blacktop, and you can't go on the carpet because on the carpet's where they pack the rigs, you know, and so you can't mess up while they're packing, because that's really important, you know, because that's what saves you whenever you're falling. So yeah, you can't play on the carpet. You can't. There was like just a really small area where I could play, but there was literally nothing to do there. So grew up around that. I remember one time my mom. I wasn't actually there this day, but she was. It was really windy, and you need to understand, people who jump out of airplanes regularly, they're a unique breed of people, and they love the adrenaline rush, right? I mean, they're doing it just because, you know, like I know, you know, some people do it for necessity, like, you know, paratroopers. You know, we've got Coast Guard that will drop out, you know, rappel down to save people from drowning incidents. You know, we got stuff like that. But my mom did it. My mom actually paid money to do it, you know. So they're sitting there and they can't jump because it's way too windy. And you can jump with some wind, but you can't jump with an insane amount of wind. So they're monitoring the wind, and they've been watching it all day. And literally, they've got their rigs on, they got their jumpsuits on, they're ready to go. They're just ready to hop in the plane and go. And the wind goes away, and they say, all right, let's go get in the plane. And they all go get in the plane. They got a plane full. They go up in the air. They're up in the air, and as they jump, right after they jump, now of course they're communicating back, you know, from the ground to the plane. You know, they're in communication. And, you know, is the wind still all right? Yeah, the wind's still all right down here. Okay, everyone, go ahead, go. They all jump out, and then they jump out, and guess what happens? Wind picks. Well, you can't go back in the plane. I don't know if you knew that or not, but once you jump out, you cannot go back into the plane. So you're committed to going to the ground. And my mom is falling, and she opens up her canopy, and she doesn't know. You know, at last she heard the wind was okay. So she's falling. She's, you know, oh, it's so beautiful, oh, so serene, oh, so wonderful. Okay, she lands. It's a good landing, and there's a way to actually collapse your canopy, right? So you pull on the risers, you pull, and it actually collapses it so that the wind can't come and pick it back up. And she's collapsing it, and as she's collapsing it, this massive gust of wind comes and rips the cords out of her hand and inflates the parachute, picks her back up in the air quite a ways. She flips over the canopy. Right, so she like catapults her, slams her on the ground, and then the canopy goes over her again, and then continues to drag her through this field. Right, so it's really bad. Right, and people are like trying to run and catch her, but she's going really fast because the wind's blowing really hard. Okay, so the wind dies down. They're able to catch up. They're able to get to her. She's kind of coming to. She's obviously very dazed, and she was okay. Ultimately, she separated her shoulder, though, was the injury that she received. It was a pretty severe separation. It really hurt. She couldn't jump for a while. They had to, you know, reset it. She had to wear, you know, one of these things for a long time, yeah, it was pretty bad. Now, to this day, though, that happened early 2000s, maybe. I mean, you know, so that happened. We're coming up maybe 20 years ago, around about 15, 20 years ago. And to this day, some of you guys know this feeling. You've had an injury, and the weather starts to kind of change a little bit, you know, or storms coming, and you kind of just start to ache in that injury a little bit. You know, years later, anybody have pains like that, aches like that? Nobody? Yeah. I mean, I'm younger than some people in this room, and I have pains like that. You know, I tore ligaments in my ankles, and you know, I still have balloon ankles, you know, and also when the weather changes and things like that, my ankles stiffen up. I can go like this, and it can just pop continually, you know, pop, 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 you know. So we got those pains and those aches that came from just one event so long ago, right? You know what I'm talking about? You know those pains, you know those aches. So one event, we're talking about, in my mom's case, this happened very fast, right? So this one very quick incident, to this day, she still has a lasting effect of pain, right? That's what we're going to talk about today, is kind of this lasting effect that conflict can have in our lives. This lasting effect that conflict, this pain that conflict can bring to our lives. So we're going to look at this text. Here's what we're going to do something a little different. We're going to just read the text all the way through, and then we're going to talk about it, okay? It's all of Genesis 33, but there's only like 20 verses in it, okay? And you're like, 20 verses, but everybody knows that, I can go a lot more than 20 verses. So 20 verses isn't that bad, okay? Pretty average. All right, so this is Genesis. Oh, no, I forgot to change Genesis 32 to 33. Just ignore that, okay? It'll be 32 on all the slides, but it's Genesis 33, okay? Just now seeing that. Genesis 33. Yeah, scratch it out. Thank you. Thank you very much. There we go. So, verse 1, now Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming toward him with 400 men, so he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 slave women. Now, why is he dividing the people? Why is he doing that? Because he's still kind of afraid that Esau's coming after him to kill him, right? Esau is his brother. He wronged Esau. Last he knew, Esau wanted him dead, so now Esau's coming with 400 men. He sees him coming, and so he divides them up. He put the slaves and their children first, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. He himself went on ahead and bowed to the ground 7 times until he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet him, hugged him, and threw his arms around him and kissed him, and they wept. When Esau looked up and saw the women and children, he asked, "Who are these with you?" He answered, "The children God has graciously given your servant." Then the slaves and their children approached him and bowed down. Leah and her children also approached and bowed down. And then Joseph and Rachel approached and bowed down. So Esau said, "What do you mean by this whole procession I meet?" "To find favor with you, my lord," he answered. "I have enough, my brother," Esau replied. "Keep what you have." But Jacob said, "No, please, if I have found favor with you, take this gift from me, for indeed I have seen your face, and it is like God's face, since you have accepted me. Please take my present that was brought to you, because God has been gracious to me, and I have everything I need." So Jacob urged him until he accepted. Then Esau said, "Let's move on, and I'll go ahead of you." Jacob replied, "My lord knows that the children are weak, and I have nursing flocks and herds, but they are driven hard for one day. But if they are driven hard for one day, the whole herd will die. Let my lord go ahead of his servant. I will continue on slowly at a pace suited for the livestock and their children, until I come to my lord at Seir." Esau said, "Let me leave some of my people with you." But he replied, "Why do that? Please indulge me, my lord." That day Esau started on his way back to Seir, but Jacob went on to Succoth. He built a house for himself and shelters for his livestock. That is why the place was called Succoth. Ignore that C. I meant to delete that. After Jacob came from Padan Aram, he arrived safely at Shechem in the place of Canaan and camped in front of the city. He purchased a section of the field where he had pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of silver, and he set up an altar there and called it God, the God of Israel. Now, that's Genesis 33. So, Jacob and Esau, after 20 years, encounter one another. And whenever they left, they did not leave on good terms. Again, Jacob cheated him. Esau wanted him dead. And they, separated Jacob. They separated because Jacob was literally running for his life. Now he's coming back. And I want to ask this question here, because it's pretty easy to pick up on. Next slide. Why didn't Jacob go with Esau? Why didn't he go with Esau? It's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got here's Jacob expecting to have a fight on his hand, right? And then Esau comes and accepts him, and then not only accepts him, but even shows him hospitality and tells him, why don't you come hang out with me, man? Why don't you come home, right? Come with me. Come live with me, come be with me, like just come, right? And we see Jacob, he quick thinking on his feet, right? He says, you know what? I got a lot of livestock. You know, you don't have any livestock. You just brought these 400 guys. Don't know why. I have all this livestock. I have all this to deal with. You know what? If I drive them really hard to get there at your pace, it'll kill them. So you go on ahead. You know, I'm not going to ask you to hang out with us. You just, it makes sense for you go back to your resources, go back to what you have, and then we'll tag along. You know, we'll come at a pace that's good for our people. You know, and we'll get there. Oh, okay, yeah, I get that, says Esau. But you know what? How about this? Let me leave some people to help you out. You know, I'm sure you could use some extra hands. Actually, you know, we don't need any extra hands. Just go, please, now. And then he leaves. And then what does Jacob do? Does Jacob go on to Seir at a leisurely rate? No, he didn't. He goes to Succoth, and then he builds tents, and then he buys land, and then he builds an altar. That's what Jacob does. So even in this, we see Jacob being a little bit what? Cautious, deceptive, right? I would say both of those are accurate, cautious and deceptive. Why didn't Jacob go with Esau? Next slide. Because of the lasting effect of conflict. Very simple. He doesn't trust Esau. He just still doesn't trust him. Go back with you, but maybe, you know, again, if I'm Esau or if I'm Jacob, you start thinking, you know, it's like, well, maybe you came with 400 men, and I was a little bit bigger than you thought, right? Because I mean, we know that Abraham. I'm sorry, my goodness. We know that Jacob has a lot of people with him, right? So he's got basically a whole small town with him, okay? And they're so and I'm a little bigger than what you thought. So maybe you're trying to lure me back to your place because you're going to do something there to me. I don't know. This is nice and all, you know, we hugged, you know, we kissed, we made up, you know, everything seems to be okay, but I don't know, I don't trust you. You're not receiving my gifts. I have to kind of push for that. So we see this lasting effect of conflict. Even after there's a surface level resolution, there's still this underlying, yeah, but I'm not ready to really go all in with you yet. Right? I think we also see a little bit of guilt here, don't we? Right? Again, Jacob imploring, just almost begging Esau to take what he's trying to give him. It's almost like he's trying to pay for the mistake. He's almost trying to give Esau what Esau would have got if he got the blessing. Right? He's trying to pay him back for the wrong that he did, and he's not really accepting no for an answer because I would say because of the guilt that he bears because of what he's done. Right? So we have this lasting effect of conflict over 20 years. Here's this nice, beautiful moment in Scripture where two brothers, one of them wanted to kill the other ran for his life. They come back, they reunite, they hug, they make up, everything is great. One says, why don't you come and live? Why don't you come and just hang out with me? Why don't you come back with me? And it's still, there's still just a little bit of awkward, uncomfortable tension there because of one thing that happened 20 years ago. Now, go to the next slide for me. Prayer helped get Jacob through this lasting effect. You know, prayer helped get Jacob through this issue with his brother. And that's not really in this text. I'm kind of reaching back to the previous chapter where what happened with Jacob whenever he found out that Esau was coming with these 400 men. What did he do? He wrestled with God. Right? He did that. As they're coming to him, first thing he does is he panics, okay? Probably use the bathroom on himself. And then, what does he do? After he panics and after he starts trying to come up with a plan, after he starts trying to figure out what he's going to do, he then prays. You guys remember that? He approached the throne room, and he didn't do it saying, save me for who I am, but he approached the throne room as if, and what he was saying to Yahweh was, save me because of who you are. Save me because of the promises that you have made. right? So he's kind of he's approaching the throne room, but prayer is what got him through. Here's what's really interesting to me. I still don't know why Esau brought 400 men with him. Can I tell you what I would think the best explanation would be? Esau was coming to kill him. Or he was at least thinking about it. Why? Here's the thing. Now, if Esau discovered Jacob, like if some scouts of Esau came back and said, you won't believe who's here. Jacob, your brother, he's here. He's within riding distance. We could get there real quick. Now, if that's how Esau found out about this, I could understand. You bring 400 men to be precautious, right? Maybe you hope for some resolution, but you got yourself a small army just in case things go south. But that's not how Esau found out. How did Esau find out that Jacob was in town? Not literally, because he was, pretty far away. It's an expression. How did he find out? You guys remember? Jacob, he looked up when they got closer, but Jacob actually sent men to Esau to announce his presence. So in good faith, Jacob says, hey, send some people, go tell Esau that I'm here, let him know I want peace, let him know I don't mean him any harm, okay? And then those men come back and they say, hey, yeah, we did what you asked, we went and talked to your brother, he's coming with an army. Right? So Esau found out from Jacob that he was there. That would tell any wise man, hey, this guy's not meaning any harm here, right? And yet, here he comes with this army. So I don't know, but here I'm just postulating here. I'm just what if as Esau is en route to come fight Jacob, Jacob's prayer actually changed Esau's heart en route. You ever think about that? I mean, he's coming with an army. He's coming with 400 men. That says something of intent. And then the intent whenever he gets there is completely different than what you would expect, right? If I invited some of you guys, if you guys were coming to Zeal's birthday party yesterday and you brought an army with you, I would think, why are you doing that, right? Doesn't make sense. And you guys just came to hang out. I mean, that'd be cool, but it'd be kind of weird, right? This is kind of weird. Why bring 400 guys if you're not looking for a fight, if you're not thinking there's going to be a fight? So what if Jacob's prayer actually changed Esau's heart en route? That's pretty cool. But here's the thing, even if it didn't, even if Esau just brought 400 men as a precaution or whatever, who knows why? We don't know. Like I said, I'm just speculating here. But we know that in that moment, whenever Esau or whenever Jacob, if I switch the names around, you just know what I'm talking about in my context, okay? Jacob leaned on God in prayer during that time. As he's coming back to confront, as the storm, as you watch the weather and the storm is coming and you know that part of your body is about to ache, right? In anticipation of the pain that's about to come, Jacob prayed. Now, it was an imperfect prayer. And even after he wrestled with God, and he walks out with this resolve. Remember we talked last week about walking out from the tent, and it says the sun shone on him, and we just had this mental picture of Jacob, limping out of his tent and walking out with the sun shining on him. And we've got so much there. We've got the pain in the hip reminding him of where he's come from and reminding him of that. And then we've got the sun shining down on him, giving him hope as he's walking into his future to confront this issue with his brother, not knowing what to expect. So we had that beautiful moment, and then right after that, here we are in this text, and what's Jacob doing? He's dividing up his family, right? He says, all right, slaves, and your kids, you get in front, so if he kills anybody, he'll kill you first, okay? And then Leah, you get right behind her, because if they're not done with them, I want them to, and you'll have a little bit of time to run, but really, Rachel, Joseph, you guys just go way, way, way over there and if you see a sword, you just run because I care about you more than anybody else. I mean, that's what he's saying very, very clearly. Rachel, Joseph, you guys are my favorite. I'm going to get you as far away as I can. Leah, you're my wife, so like I have this obligation, so, I'll put you kind of in between. Slaves, I'm sorry, guys. You serve me. You're here for me. Right now I need you to be a shield. Right here. Line up. Right? So we see even in that just a little bit of lack of faith, a little bit of fear, right? And again, I don't know. We don't know what's in Jacob's mind because it's not in the text. But again, you guys know anybody who looks for symbolism in almost anything? You guys know anybody who does that? All of you can raise your hand because you know me, okay? And I do that. Okay, the other day, Chris and I are watching an Apple Watch commercial, and it's like, Apple Watch keeps time. And like, have you guys seen that commercial? We're talking about it, and it's just going through all these things, and it ends with like the keeps track of your heart rate and all that. And then it goes, so yes, Apple Watch keeps time. And I was like, oh, wow, that was cool, because the old ticker keeps time, and monitors your heart rate. And like, Chris was like, I don't think that's what they meant. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's what they meant. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what they were trying to go for. So, Right, yeah. And I'm saying they were trying to go with the deeper anyway. So, right, yeah, maybe they weren't. Maybe I'm just. So again, if you're one of those guys that are looking at this with like some deeper meaning stuff, like so you're thinking, okay, if I'm Jacob and I just had this incredible moment where I just wrestled with God and lived and now I'm named Israel, right? And God saves. Okay, so God's going to save me. But I have this really painful limp now. So maybe what God's telling me, if I'm Jacob, I'm looking for symbolism and stuff. I don't know if Jacob was that kind of guy. Maybe, here's what's going to happen. Maybe my family's going to die, but I'm going to pull through and I'm going to start a family somewhere else, because that's the symbolism of my limp. I'm going to live. God saves Israel, but I'm going to live with a limp because he's going to really hurt me, going to do a lot of damage. So I don't know. I don't know what Jacob's thinking. Okay? But we see just a little bit of fear. And whenever we see fear, here's just a general rule of thumb. You ready for this? Fear in your life, regards to conflict, regards to work, regards to self-esteem, self-esteem is not really good, regards to your identity, we'll say that. Regards to fear, anytime you're experiencing fear with anything, it's there because of a lack of faith. Fear and faith don't really go together, right? Jesus said that a couple. Why are you so afraid? Have you no faith? Right? So we know that where faith is, fear is not. We know that perfect love casts out fear. Okay, so we see Jacob responding in fear in this text. So we had this beautiful moment where he wrestles with God, gets his name changed. It's like really this nice pinnacle moment. Then he steps out of the tent. We got the sun shining on him with his lamp. And then he says, okay, guys, we're going to divide you up because I'm still scared. Right? Why? Because of this lasting effect that conflict has. But prayer, even imperfect, weak, I'm scared in my boots prayer, got him through. Can I be super duper vulnerable with you guys? Kind of try to bring this home, okay? So this is actually, I realized preparing this week that this is my last sermon at Ferguson Christian Church because next week, we got Stacy and Pabarkis and Bill and then me, and I'm not going to preach a whole sermon. Don't worry, So I'm thinking, okay, so this is my last sermon. Okay, so I'm just gonna be vulnerable, and I asked for your permission, but I don't really care, okay, because we're gonna talk. So you guys know I went through a pretty dark season there for a minute, right? Especially those in my rooted group and in the emotional health, we talked about it pretty openly. I pretty open in there, and open with you guys, even from standing up here. I went through this pretty dark season. Didn't know where it came from. Whenever I was in the dark, and when you're in the darkness, you can't see anything, right? Because it's dark, right? It's really hard to even see how you got there, right? So I'm in the darkness. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to think, okay, where did this come from? Why am I dealing with this? What's going on? This came out of nowhere, right? And what's really crazy is that it was right after one of the highest spiritual seasons I've ever had in my life, right? So, everybody says, you got this really high, and then there's real low, right? So I had this really awesome season of months of communion with God like I never experienced before. And then it's almost like somebody, you get hit in the back of the knee right there. It's almost like somebody just came and like roundhouse me like right in the back of the knee, and I fall back, and it's like, how did I get here, right? So there I am. I'm in the darkness. I'm wrestling with it. And then I'm praying, trying to figure out where it came from. Why am I wrestling with whatever? I don't even know what I'm wrestling with, right? And I realized that it came from conflict years ago. Issues with my dad, conflict with my dad. And the result was now, because of the lasting effect of this conflict, is that I am placing my identity literally in my earthly dad, not in my heavenly Father, and the identity that he's given me through the blood of Jesus Christ. Right? Now that affected me as a dad. That affected me as a husband. That affected me as a random guy at Starbucks. That affected me as your pastor. Like that affected it affected everything. Everything. And here's the thing, I'm looking at this, and here's what brought all of this to the surface. Okay, I don't have time to really get into all of it. I'll share it with anybody if you want to talk another time, but here's what brought all this to the surface. It was ministry, because my dad was a minister. So being in the same role as him, looking like him, same mannerisms as him, same strength as him, same everything as him, in the same role as him, I'm wrestling with my identity and not placing it in him because I'm afraid of being like him. He's done a lot of damage. And so here I am, and I'm wrestling with that, finding my identity in that, and it was dark, and it was hard. And I started to kind of blame the ministry for the problems. Right? Putting the cart before the horse. The ministry surfaced the problems, but I started to blame the ministry for the problems. So I started praying for God to get me out of ministry. The first time that I ever experienced God was whenever he called me to ministry. I didn't want to be a minister. I didn't want to be a preacher. I didn't want to be a pastor. I honestly wanted to have nothing to do with it. Maybe be a really good churchgoer, but I didn't even really aspire to be that. Okay, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. Wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to do this. Did not want to do it. And everybody kept trying to put it on me, and whenever people try to put it on me, you're going to be a preacher just like your dad, I would tell them to stop telling me that. I got to say, no, I'm not. This is what I'm going to do. I'm my own person. I have my plan. Leave me alone. The first time I ever experienced God was whenever he told me I was going to be a preacher. And ever since that moment, I had peace about it. Like literally, like in a matter of seconds, I did a 180. I'm not going to be a preacher. I'm going to be a preacher. Right? First time I experienced that. So I always go back to that moment. God, you told me that this is what you wanted me to do. I'm within your will. So now I'm blaming ministry for these problems. So now here's what I'm doing. I'm praying and I'm saying, okay, God, I don't want to do it. I want to be done. But because you made it so clear to me that you wanted me to do it, I need you to tell me that you want me to be done. I need you to tell me that it's time to go. I can do all kinds of other things. This is something that I don't really share. I got in Bible college, I got an offer, a sales offer. I sit down with somebody and sold them Cutco knives, right? They owned their own business, offered me a job to be a salesman for them, told me that most of their salesmen make six figures within the first year, told me the first thing that they do is they go out with me, they'd buy me new suits, right? Okay, and I wasn't actually in St. Louis. I had enrolled in St. Louis Christian College, but wasn't there yet. It was that summer before, right? Talk about a temptation. I'm sitting there at a restaurant with this person. I'm thinking, I mean, I could back out. There'd be no financial effect, right? It's not too late to withdraw from all my classes, right? No debt, no student loan debt. I'm getting this job offer right here to just gab at people, and then I get paid a lot of money, and I'm getting new suits. And I paused for a moment, and I told her, you know what, I think I'm doing what God wants me to do. Why? Because I went back to that moment that happened at that point, it wasn't that long after that God told me very clearly, this is what I want you to do. So I told her, no, I'm going to do this. Right? So now that I'm struggling with it, blaming ministry for all the problems, I'm telling myself, I could go I'm still young. The world is my oyster. I get out of this. I can do whatever I want. And I could just be done with all my problems. Now, I was lying to myself because my problems were not the ministry. Ministry surfaced my problems. But here's what happened. I'm in this room, praying for Father to release me from it. And I'll get up here and I'll pace around up here. I don't preach up there, but I'll get around, I'll pace around up there. There's something about elevation stuff for me. I used to climb trees to pray because it was just like a symbolism of trying to get just a little bit closer to the heavens. And I know God's here with me, right? But it's just something, it's just a practice of mine. And then I fell out of a tree one time. So now I don't do that so much anymore, but whenever I pray in here, sometimes I'll step up there. It's just a couple steps, but I'll pace around up there, okay? It's all cleared off. It's not a lot of stuff up there. And I got up here and I was praying, okay? And I was praying, and here's what I was praying. Do you want me to do this? Do you not want me to do this? Do you want me to do this? Do you not want me to do this? This was several months ago. Do you want me to do this? Do you not want me to do this? Do you want me to do this? Do you not? I'm praying. I've been praying that for days, okay? Been praying it here, been praying it at home, been praying it whenever I'm at Starbucks, been praying it whenever I'm at the grocery store, been praying it a lot. And I'm here and I'm praying, and then I was standing right, I'll show you where I was. I was standing right here. I was right about here. And then all of a sudden, you freak out whenever people say God spoke to me or whatever, but God spoke to me, okay? If you want to know what that's like, for me, it's not like an audible voice. We can talk about it later. Don't have time for it right now. But here's what he told me. I said, do you want me to do this? And he said, do you want to do it? And with that came a flood of realizations. One, I had postured myself in a way as though he needed me to do it. Because what I was really in my heart of hearts, I didn't realize I was asking this, but what I was asking was, do you need me to do this? Because if you don't need me to do it, I'm splitting, right? So do you need me to do it is really what I was asking. So whenever he asked me, do you want to do it, what I realized is that he's already made it abundantly clear what he wants me to do. He called me to it, and then he placed me here. You guys also know I didn't look for Ferguson Christian Church. The opportunity came to me because Crystal and I got a secular job. I hate that term, but I got a job in an office being a headhunter. Okay, so I got that job to provide for my family and just praying for a ministry opportunity because I didn't want to look for something and get what I wanted. I wanted Father to give me what he wanted me to have. Right? He called me to ministry, made that clear that's what he wanted. He placed me here, made that clear that's what he wanted. Right? And here I am pacing on this stage asking him, what do you want? Do you want me to do this? And he made it very clear, I already told you what I wanted. And here you are, acting like a little sissy, and you're saying, I'm being harder on myself than what he was being on me, okay? But what he made clear was that he said, I don't need you. I want you in ministry, but I don't need you in ministry. And I realized the arrogance that I was bringing to the table in my prayer. He doesn't need me. That was my first realization. My second realization was that he did indeed want me. He didn't need me, but he wanted me. He didn't need me in ministry, but he wanted me in ministry. His will would be accomplished with or without me. It doesn't hinge upon me one bit. But he wanted me there in ministry. And then this was my prayer. I realized that I'm on my knees right here crying. Okay? And then this is my prayer. I don't want to do it. And I just confessed that to him. I said, I don't want to do it anymore. I want to be done. But I want to do it. Because I believe it's what you want me to do. So then my prayer became, help me want it. I don't want it. I want it. So help me want it. And then he answered that prayer. It wasn't immediate, right? I didn't step outside and then, the dark clouds just separated and the sun shone down. That didn't happen, right? It took months, long time. And I've shared with you guys generalities of this journey of mine, right? Gave me this vision, gave me a heart for you guys I hadn't had before, gave me a newfound passion. I mean, all this almost in an instant, not right then, but months later, in the course of a week, it all just came flooding back to me. I did a 180. It was really cool. It was really awesome. But that conflict from years ago that I had with my dad, and the lasting effect and the pains that it brought, surfaced all kinds of issues. And it was really weak, frankly, really bad prayer that got me through. Just coming to the throne room with what I had and just dumping it on the ground. Saying, this is what I have. I have nothing else. This was literally, if you think about my prayer was, God, I literally have nothing else other than a desire to not do what you're wanting me to do. That's all that I have, is a desire to do the opposite of what you're telling me to do. But I'm bringing it to you, and I'm saying, can you take that? Can you do something with that? And he did. Jacob leaned on prayer, and it got him through this lasting conflict. I leaned on prayer, and it got me through that lasting conflict. Weak, bad prayer. Just like Jacob's prayer. It was a bad prayer, right? Fear-based, lack of faith, all over it. And yet he just dropped it in front of the Lord, and the Lord did something with it. Next slide. Remembering Yahweh's promise helped get Jacob through. In that prayer that he prayed in the last chapter, that's what he's leaning on, is God's promise, right? And honestly, Jacob was miles ahead of where I was in my prayer here, because I wasn't even leaning on God's promise at all. But that's where I started to lean in that moment, was his promises. I realized, okay, so you've told me this is where you want me. That means that you're going to provide literally everything for it. You're going to provide the heart for it. You're going to provide the demeanor for it. You're going to help me get through the issues with my dad. You're going to provide all of this. Maybe not right now in this moment, but you're going to provide all of it. And that's not something that you've said you might do. That's something that you've promised. You've promised to be with me in this. You've promised to sanctify me. You've promised to make me a new being. You've promised to transform my heart. You've promised all of this. And that's what I began to lean on in that moment. And that's what Jacob had been leaning on. Very weak leaning, very poor leaning, very bad leaning, but he's leaning on it, right? And again, if we're just being honest, right? This endeavor, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one that's experiencing this, right? I believe probably the majority of people in this room are experiencing this, given what we're going through, right? This is this Sunday, next Sunday, the 27th, is the last Sunday at this congregation, and we've got some big changes that are happening, right? And we've got all kinds of questions and all kinds of what-ifs. And here's the thing, is that this past week, I started to get consumed. This past couple days, I started to get consumed with the what-ifs and with the concerns and with the fears. And I started to get really drugged down really quick by it. And then, you know what? I just said, God, I'm going to pray. I'm going to fast. I need you to help me. And here at first, my prayer was, I need you to help me by telling me what the answers to my questions are going to be. I prayed that. Like, I need you to help me by answering these questions right now, right? That's how you can help me, God. And then I changed it to, you know what? You can help me by just making me be okay with the unknown. Can you do that? You don't have to give me any of the answers, but can you just help me be okay with the unknown? And that's whenever he showed up. It's whenever I started praying for that. Why? Because he didn't promise to give me the answers to all my what-if questions. But he did promise to be with me in the unknown. And he promised that it's only unknown for one of the parties in that, me, because he knows. So if I'm in the unknown with him, then I'm in the unknown with someone who does know and who has the power to fulfill it. So what have I to be afraid of? And if I'm demanding that my questions be answered, what does that really say about me? What does that really say about my faith? What does that say about what I think of him? Why do I want to know the answers? So that I can be in control. Praying for him to give me control isn't what got me through. Leaning on his promises, remembering them, That's what got me through. Just literally these past couple days. So we got this conflict that's happened. We've got Jacob being very imperfect, right? Lack of faith, dividing up his family, running afraid, acting deceptively, all this stuff. I want to ask this question again. Next slide. Why didn't Jacob go with Esau? Yeah, it's because he didn't trust him, I think. I think there was definitely an element of that there, right? But, next slide. It's because he chose to live in Yahweh's promise. Yahweh didn't tell Jacob to go to Seir. Yahweh told Jacob to go to Canaan. Yahweh didn't tell Jacob to go with Esau. Yahweh told Jacob, I'm going to make you a big enough nation there won't be any room for Esau. Now, again, Jacob was very imperfect. Jacob could have told Esau. A man of faith, a man of confidence, would have said, you know what, Esau, I might come visit you, maybe like for Christmas or something. It's a joke. They didn't have Christmas. But here's the thing. Remember whenever I stole your blessing? So that still means something, though. I'm God's fulfilling things through me, and it requires me to not go with you. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to settle over here. Now, why didn't Jacob do that? I would say because he was afraid to tell Esau to his face, right? It was a lot easier for him to lie and deceive. But even in that imperfection, here's what doesn't happen. Yahweh didn't say, Jacob, you've ran around like you're afraid. You showed so little faith in who I am. You're going around, you're still deceiving your brother. Did you not learn what happened 20 years ago when you did that? And you're doing it all over again. What do you think is going to happen when he finds out? You know what, Jacob? I am through. I am done with you. I'm leaving you here by yourself. Whatever happens to you happens, but you're not my responsibility anymore because you just keep messing up. He didn't do that. That wasn't his response. His promise still stood because his promise was not contingent upon Jacob behaving rightly, about Jacob having it all figured out. The promises that he has for you in your life as you deal with conflict, as you deal with this lasting effect, as you deal with whatever it is, the promises that he's given you are not contingent upon you being good. What I realized up here was that the promise that he gave me was not contingent upon me performing well or being good or being okay even with the situation that I was in or not being in the darkness. That's the thing. I felt guilty for being in the darkness. None of that. His promise stood because of who he is and what he was doing and his will. That's why his promise stood. So as Jacob is fumbling around and as he's lying and as he's deceiving and as he's running around afraid and as he's showing his lack of faith, he's coming to the throne room with it, you know what I mean? Like he's praying about it, he's praying through it, he's messing up, so he's not confessing everything, at least not that we have in the text, but boy, you know, he's literally tripping through life. And here's the thing is Yahweh is just kind of helping him up. And just keeps getting him back up, and, give him a little pat on his rear end, saying, okay, keep going, Jacob. Okay, now get up, keep going. And that's exactly what he's doing with us. We fumble through life, and we think, I'm such an idiot. How could I do that? God's going to be so mad at me. And God's just saying, no, just get up. Just keep going. It's okay. Just I'm going to get you through this. You don't have to get through. I'm going to get you through this. Just lean into me. Just fall into me. I got it. It's okay. A lot of things in life can be scary. Conflict's one of them. As we think back in our life about conflict that we have, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. I can think of conflicts that I've been involved in from years ago, 10 plus years ago. mistakes that I've made long ago, people that I've wronged long ago, that I wish I could somehow change, and I can't. And it still has, even to this day, there's still effects from it that I live with. Guilt even that I live with, and I'm having to constantly surrender, that I'm having to constantly bring to the throne room because of conflict from so long ago and the lasting effect of it. Here's the thing. That's just a sign that we live in a world where sin still plagues us, but here's the promise that we can lean on. That he is redeeming it. That he is sanctifying it. That really the issue's already been crushed. We're just living in the already and the not yet. But that one day we'll be through it. And right now we have the option to be with him in it, in the darkness, in the filth. But one day we'll be able to be with him in the light, with no influence of darkness. That's a promise. Not contingent upon you, how good you are, not contingent upon me or how good I am. It just completely rests on him. So as we deal with the lasting effects of conflict, as we deal with the lasting effects of sin, we can just surrender them as we fumble our way through this life, bringing to the throne room whatever it is that we have to bring, even if it's a desire to do the opposite of what he's telling us to do. He can do something even with that. Lean into him. He'll redeem us, and he'll get us through. That's a promise. Father, we come to you and we thank you so much for your promises to get us through, for your ability to sustain us, for your ability to withhold us, for your ability to redeem us. We are a filthy people. And it is so crazy. It's so crazy to think about how you want us. We try to find ways that we can fit ourselves into your kingdom where you might need us, where we might be needed or useful, but you don't need us. You want us. So if we weren't here worshiping, if no one was around worshiping, the rocks would cry out and worship to you. I mean, we look up into the heavens at the beautiful array of clouds, and we can't see it here because of the light pollution, but if we were in the country, we would see the stars that are, and all of them are praising you, all of them are declaring your glory. You don't need us. But you want us. And Father, conflict, sin, the effects that it has on us, the pains and the aches, they can keep us distracted from that fact that you want us and that you want to use us and that you want to be a part of our lives and that you want to walk with us alongside whatever it is that we're going through. That conflict and that sin, it can distract us from that fact. And I pray that in this moment, at the very least, it's a little less distracting. The conflict is, the sin is. I pray that at least in this moment right now, we can look to you and we can see that you do want to walk with us and that you do want to be with us and that you've promised to get us through this, not because of who we are, but because of who you are. May we lean on you with weak, terrible, bad prayer. May we lean on you with whatever we have, whatever we don't have. May we just lean on your promises. May we not demand so many answers. May we instead just declare that you're with us. Help us see that. Help us live in it. I pray that we walk out of here living in it a little bit more than when we did living in it whenever we came in. That's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.